Hey everyone, this is Ben back with you in the Midwest Model Shop. Thanks for watching, and thank you everyone who contributes on our Patreon channel. We do appreciate it. Right now we're doing the Duchess of Kingston build over there for any of you who might be interested in checking it out. It's over on Patreon. I'll put the link down below. So today, Enterprise Hull Part 2, mostly finish it. So what we're going to do is, you saw last time that I put extra hull detail on, but it ended up pretty prominent and not right. So I basically sort that out in this episode. We'll get some red paint on it, we'll get some blue paint on it, and then I go ahead and put the degaussing lines on and some additional photo etch. You'll see how that gets all taken care of. Basically we're going to scratch build all of that stuff. I go back and forth. I said at the beginning I want to do measure 11 paint scheme on this ship. I talked to Kenneth, read some links. There's a couple people out there who think it was measure 21 anyway, despite the fact that all public records say it was still measure 11. You'll see, I ran into a scenario where basically I didn't realize I didn't have the paint that I needed, and I went with measure 21, and you'll see how that turns out. And yeah, I don't think we're going to stick with it. But anyway, it's all in the video. Thank you very much for watching. Let's get into the build. Okay, folks, so we're back at it. This is what we've got going on here. Last time, things didn't look so hot, and I think you could see at a distance they look a lot better than what we had going on last time. Still kind of prominent, but here's what I did here, and I've got a lot of fixing to do. We'll just pick this arbitrary section here. So you can see like there's some damage from my sanding. I went ahead and sanded down significantly the styrene strips that I'd put in place. And then what I did is I masked them off and put 3 more heavy layers of paint on the model primer, and then peeled the paint off and did one more like final coat. And so what I ended up with, actually I was really happy in some areas. It was like kind of almost flush, like up in the bow here. You could see the contrast because there's only one layer of paint here, but when you run your fingers across here, it's almost flush, right? But what you do have, focusing issues here, is a little bit of a little lip, right? And that comes from the masking tape and the paint building up a little edge right there. It's almost like the perfect little weld line. So what this means is I've got to do a bunch of work, and I'm going to take this 1200 grit sandpaper. I'm going to wet sand down the lip that I made from the paint, and that should even everything out. I'm going to have to come back and fix a bunch of damage and little mistakes and things like that. I think we're going to smooth it out. And this is a really dark color primer, but I think we're going to end up with the look that we want. And I've got, like, I had a little raised area here that needs to be fixed, but in the back here, like, I'm really liking how this is going. So I'm going to do that off camera because that's just a ton of sanding that nobody needs to see, and I'll come back with the end results, showing you how that all worked out. The last thing we got to do, though, I think is after that's done, I want some vertical lines. The smart thing to do would just be to scribe them, but that's not, I mean, they were weld lines. So I might scribe the plastic, and then I might take some really tiny thin stretch sprue and lay it in between and hit it with the Tamiya ultra thin glue and see if it doesn't literally weld and bind itself down into the surface. That's what I'm looking for here. So the big thing is I'm just trying to get not a boring looking flat hull. I know it mostly was clean and smooth and stuff like that, but I want it to be a little bit more interesting. When you back further away from it, you don't really notice the stuff. You get up close, there's a lot of things happen. It may not be perfectly scale accurate, but I think that for what I'm doing here, it'll look cool. It'll be a little bit more interesting than just a boring hull. So anyway, let me get that done. Pressing on. Okay, we are back. So I have done a ton of wet sanding. What are we looking at here? The starboard side. And as you can see, I'm not done yet, but I've also gone ahead and got our little checkerboard pattern in here, or bricks, I guess, is kind of how I did it. I opted to just scribe them. It just went faster. It's super subtle. We'll probably lose the detail with the first coat of paint, but it's there. It's subtle, and that's the way it's supposed to be. So, pretty happy with how this has turned out. I mean, it's all rough right now, right? It needs to be cleaned off some more and painted some more and things like that. So now that that's done, I'm going to begin the luxurious task of putting all the little photo etch pieces in around all of our portholes. And when that's done, I'll probably figure out where the water line is going to go, and then we'll address the degaussing lines that need to go on the hull. All right, back with that, pressing on. All right, back in action here. You can see we've got all the little portholes installed, and that's just fantastic all the way up here to the bow on both sides, all the way over there so you can see. So the next thing I want to do is begin working on the degaussing lines. So kind of coming back here to the rear end of the ship. So there's 4 cables that come along this area, and the degaussing lines basically they just ran electricity through it, and it's supposed to upset the ship's magnetic field, making it less susceptible to magnetic mines. So I've got the rear deck here, and it drops in. Actually, mine example, my hull fits really well, and right here, zoom in so you can see. I've put a little circle around that little hole, and there's another one all the way up here on the opposite side. And the reason for that is where, right here, a crane goes. And in all of my reference photos, there's a little ledge, like this little, right over that porthole, a little lip that comes out. For November 1944, or 42, sorry, November 1942, and that is not on the kit anywhere. And the degaussing lines are supposed to come along, and they kind of go up and terminate into that area. So I'm going to go ahead and scratch build a little thing that matches there, and then we'll start utilizing the KA instructions for running those degaussing lines. You can see here they just said, hey, put a 4.5 millimeter gap. They go all the way up, they come all the way down, and on their way they go. And that's because there is nothing here on the kit. It's just, there's nothing. But I'm going to make a little deal there, and then we'll start running those. So let me cut that out, glue it in, and then we'll start with the degaussing line process. Okay, so here you can see one of them, the other one's on the other side. No problemo there. The only problemo we do have is that technically looks like all of these portholes were probably covered up in November of 1942, and I just didn't need to do that, which is kind of a bummer. I'm trying to decide how much I care about this next technicality. So this is a piece of the Pontos degaussing line, and it basically shows it coming down right here and covering all of the portholes up as it ran along the side of the hull right here, all the way along until we get way up there, a few feet away at the bow. So I have to decide, so this is the kit, the part from Pontos. This is the piece that goes in the back. It comes around and meets up like this, and then hits a spot. The funny thing is that ends up like right about here, and you end up way short of where this is. So I'm kind of happy I've decided to scratch build the degaussing line so I could come at least to here. So it's like, I don't know, I took the time to say, well, this needs to be here. I put it in, and now I didn't need these. I'm going to cover them with degaussing cables technically. Or do I not? Do I bring the cables down lower going forward here just underneath them and moving along so that you can still see the portholes, kind of taking a little bit of license there to do that. Or I can just go right over them, right, and just paint over the whole thing. Like, who cares? They were just blocked off during the war, I think, at this point. You may have been able to open them from the inside to let ventilation in. Not really sure. I gotta change the battery camera here. Okay, so here's what we've got going. I've gone ahead and put a couple of pieces of styrene right here on the stern. I need to sand down kind of this inboard edge going to the middle because that's kind of how they taper in. This is 0.025 rod right here, okay? And it's a little bit bigger. Probably needed 0.30 to do this right, but I don't care. Lots of Tamiya cement. And then what we're going to do, so I did that, right? And then over here in my spot, I did the same thing. This is the thicker stuff where it's going to connect, right? And thanks to referencing Kenneth at the Norwegian Model Bench Shop, I was like, oh, I could just run these lines above the portholes and then I don't lose them. So I get to keep it. So, you know, maybe not totally accurate, but whatever. This is my model. I put these on here and I want to save the portholes so that you can see them, okay? So that's what we're going to do. So now I need to connect the two spots. So we'll use this 0.02 rod, which, I mean, you can see through here, it is super thin. And we'll just run 4 of them all the way around here. The idea is going to be to I'll put some Tamiya tape on here, probably just like this, and make sure I can get them going around. And I'll add some of my Tamiya thin extra thin cement to knock it into position. So let me kind of get this going here, and we'll start in the back, and then we'll work our way forward here along the rest of the ship. But I kind of want to start in the back here, and I think it'll get the look that we want. So yeah, give me a minute here. All right, so we've got our first little bit installed here, and I know it's not perfect. I don't want it perfect. If you wanted it perfectly straight and run around kind of like in the reference photos, it's not very hard to do. You just secure the end and pull it taut, and you're good to go. But I didn't want to do that. I want it to look like it's wire and kind of like it's hanging along as it protrudes back. I had a little trouble back there, but up here is a little mess, but not a big deal. On this side, on our starboard side, we get a little bit more activity here. A little bit of a dip down, come together, coming up, going over, and then terminating, I think, pretty nicely into this spot right here, right? That's where it's supposed to go. So this is good. So now the next bunch is just gonna run right along, and as far as I know, I think it does like 4 for like so far down it stops and cuts off into 2, and then we've got to do our detail up there on the hull. But at a distance here, at a glance, it's much thicker than doing the photo etch. So this is the much thicker Pontos photo etch, but it's flat, and I think it was worth doing it with the rod just to get that look. I mean, having it be round, I mean, that's the way that it is. So right now I'm really happy with what I've done to the hull. It's kind of roughed up. I've smoothed it out. We've got our little lines, and they're probably going to disappear. You can see right now from this view that you basically can't tell. It's mostly smooth, which is great. And you get back here and you'll see the degaussing lines, so they'll look really good, run along the whole thing. And then, you zoom in, and then, oh, hey, there's all kinds of stuff going on with the hull right there. That's what I'm after. That's the look that I want for this piece. So, all right, let me go ahead and just finish up running this along. This might take another day or two, and then we'll come back to, I guess, paint, right? We need to get a water line, some red, some blue, maybe a black line. Yeah, pressing on. Okay, so while I'm working on the degaussing lines and I was waiting for some stuff to dry, I thought, oh, I'll go ahead and put the little nameplate on the back of the ship. No big deal, right? And then I realized I might be able to up my game there in a little area. So let me show you what I've done with the wire that connects it. When you're looking at it, you can see right there, there's little connecting wires. After I put it on, I doused it with some thin CA glue, and I went back and I was able to cut out those little connecting wires. So we should just have the letters. It's a small detail, but it's nice. So I still have to do the ones over here on the left. And then hopefully I don't have too much glue on here, but even if the letters disappear a little bit, I mean, on the real ship, they're real subtle. They're just barely raised. But yeah, it's kind of a nice little feature. So anyway, I thought I'd share that. I just, like I said, glued it on, take the little knife, cut it out, and you're good to go. All right, pressing on. Okay, here we go. I have installed all of our degaussing line that I ran around the ship. And real quick, this piece that I scratched built right here on both sides, if you have the Ponto set, S30, if you look on the Sierra sheet, S, they actually provide this for you in photo etch. I didn't realize that until after the fact, and basically it's exactly what I made here. So it turned out nice. Our degaussing lines, I think, turned out great. Now, they're not perfectly straight. I didn't want them to be perfectly straight. I thought they looked a little bit more, you know, the real thing was pretty straight, but as a model, you just kind of want, I feel like you want it to be, I don't know, I feel like you want it to have a little bit more life to it, right? So that's that. It's all installed. Looks good. So I've gone ahead, you can't see it here, but I've penciled a line in around the hull so that we can get some paint going on here. And I'm going to start out with some Tamiya Primer Red. I think that's what I'm going to use. And then to mark the line, I use this thing, Scribe Tech. This is, I got this at my local home goods store, and you just set the height and drag it around. You can do what you need. It was super inexpensive and just worked fine, so I'm really happy with it. So now that that's complete and I am happy with it, we will go ahead and get it painted up. And I think I showed you in the back here our little Enterprise emblem. We'll see what I got to do to kind of clean this up. It's in the time period that I'm doing, it was just painted the same color as the ship, I believe, and it was barely visible, but you know, whatever. I saw this little doodad in a photograph, so that's there. Yeah, ship was roughed up at this point in the war, but I feel like, am I zoomed out all the way? Yeah, here we go. I feel like we've got just the right amount of kind of roughness. I mean, all of this is going to get painted over and smoothed up, but I feel like there's just enough boogering and damage going on here that it's interesting. But you know, all the way back here from this view, get a little light on it, you can't, it's still basically pretty smooth, even in the primer state. And then you zoom in and it's like, oh, there's all kinds of stuff going on. That's the look that I'm going for. So with that being said, I think it's time to get paint on it. So I'll get the primer on the bottom of the ship and bring it back inside. I'm going to do the blue on top, then I'll come back and do my boot stripe, the black line, because I want to kind of rough that up a little bit so that you know, it shows a little bit of wear and tear. All right, yeah, pressing on. Well, so I wanted to do measure 11. This whole time, that's what I've been talking about, November 1942. But I discovered, well, first of all, I talked to Kenneth. He's read a couple articles that imply that it may have been measure 21 already. I'm not totally sold on that, but one thing is for sure, I do not have any sea blue paint in-house, which I swore I did. I don't. But what I do have is United States Navy blue 5N, which is perfect for measure 21. And I think I used the same color in Missouri late in the war. That makes sense. So what I think I'm going to do is apply the measure 21 US Navy blue. We'll use that because I've got plenty of it, and I don't feel like waiting a few weeks for the color. And we'll lighten it up. We'll do some weathering to fade it back and kind of get the tone that I want. I don't like pure navy blue. I think it's too dark. I understand that's the color it was in the war, and it worked for camouflage. This is a model ship. I want it to look good. So what we have is a couple bottles of our Life Color US Navy Blue 5N right here. It's I think I shook this up. It's a real nice color. It should go on and look really nice. So the ship, as you can see here, is all masked off in our standard navy painter green tape. That's what I call it down there. Yeah, the red's on here. It looks really nice. And I'm going to go ahead and bust out the airbrush, and we'll get the blue up here, just kind of as a starter deal type of arrangement. And there's our little monitor. Continuing with the experimenting with the other camera angles. So anyway, yeah, let me go ahead and we'll get the airbrush fired up. I'll get this blue on. We'll cut back to you. See you in a minute. All right, here we go. Ship is painted up. Here's the hull. I don't have the boot stripe on yet. I just wanted you all to see the navy blue. It turned out very nice. I'm pleased with, see if I can zoom in here. I'm pleased with how my little scratch build detail turned out and how the degaussing cables turned out. I mean, they're round, they look like degaussing cables, right? Back of the ship here. So the Enterprise looks okay, but you can see boogers there, right? Some of my CA glue didn't work out right, and that's okay. We'll take the time to go ahead and clean that up, get it smoothed out a little bit more, and yeah, press on from there. Very pleased with the degaussing cables once again. I think that looks a lot better than the photo etch options, and then of course the big wire that the kit provided. Here's the whole thing once again. The navy blue turned out just like it was supposed to, navy blue, and it looks very, very nice. The thing is, I hate it. I don't like the way it looks at all. It looks like navy blue measure 21, and it's just too dark. And I know I said that I was going to go ahead and lighten it up, but I just don't like it. I want measure 11. I like the sea blue. So what I need to do now is just go ahead and look at a couple of my suppliers, order up the sea blue, wait for it to show up. And so what I'll do is I'll get it, and I'll go over this, and you'll see it in the next episode, the sea blue. I think it's going to have the color that I want. I don't care for this appearance. It's too dark for a model. I realize it's correct for real life. It's meant for camouflage in the ocean so that you can't, airplanes can't see it from above. And in real life, I think it worked really well. But yeah, no good. Not happy with it. So we're going to go ahead and get that fixed. So one last look here at the ship as it is. Thank you all very much for watching. Appreciate your patience. And be safe. We'll get back to you next time with measure 11 and not measure 21. Take care.